everyone. Welcome to Toward a Quality of Life here in the month of March on a somewhat pleasant afternoon. Yes, coming to you from the Roxbury studio of BNN TV. Now, before I start with what I'm going to talk about, which is more about the deplorable, alarming, sad, and discouraging situation in Washington, D.C. and for our country, so much so that you'll notice usually I bring you topics of environment, philosophy, physics, psychology, but I keep on harping on the politics and on what's going on with our beloved country because it is such a stark and startling situation. Last time that I gave a lecture about some of these similar issues, it was pointed out to me that people may like to know where I get my information. And anything that I say to you can be checked out for its veracity, either in actual print in paper media or books, or it can be seen on the internet. And one of the easiest ways to see what I'm talking about on the internet would be just to Google. And if you Google things and have practice at it, you'll notice that using the right keywords in the right sequence order, you'll start to get a flavor for it, brings you better and better results as you have practice and know more how to do it. Otherwise, some of the media that I pay attention to or peruse to find out my information would be a lot of liberal newsletters and media outlets as well as conservative ones. And these would be some outlets such as Huffington Post, the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, the Los Angeles Times, Real Clear Politics, Politico, which is on MSNBC every day talking about its news events, and World News Daily. So those are things that you can use, too, to find out what I'm talking about. And believe me, you almost have no right to vote. You almost have no right to think or have an opinion if you don't really know what's going on and you're just going by some superficial appearance and superficial lies. Now, I'll tell you something, too, before I begin, which kind of fits in with government and what government is doing and so on. I know many people from the country of Haiti, and, of course, they had that horrible earthquake recently, and then a while later we had the earthquake in Chile. And when we did, one of the people I know from Haiti saw me and said, "Boy, did you see now another earthquake?" And I said, "Yes." And she said, "Why do you think we're having so many earthquakes?" And I said, "Well, because I believe possibly that a lot of the underground bomb testing and other kind of underground shenanigans that go on with our military and research people here and around the world could possibly be having an effect on the earth becoming unstable and shook up, so to speak." So the person said to me that in Haiti we believe that it was an earthquake bomb. In other words, a bomb that was sent to make an earthquake. And perhaps an earthquake as in a test to see how it would be, or perhaps to make an earthquake. So I thought, no kidding. So I went to Google and I Googled earthquake, Haiti earthquake bomb. And lo and behold, we do have bombs, and as do other countries, that are meant to create earthquakes, to go deep into the ground and do destruction from that angle. And the idea is some people are believing that this earthquake bomb was being tested to possibly be used in Iran, because you know that there's a big discussion the world over to not allow Iran to get nukes, which they believe they're trying to do, to nukes in the sense of not just nuclear power for energy, but nukes that would be bombs and be able to threaten other people by having them. So, and also some of the articles pointed out that one of our military top persons happened to be in Haiti during that time and stated this might be the reason he was there should something go awry with this bomb. And another thing this person told me why people felt that way was because the extent of the damage, she told me way more than an earthquake, the breadth and the width of how much it interfered with. It wasn't localized, so to speak. And also that the people reported before the earthquake struck itself, before the roar or noise of the earthquake, people reported that all the water drained away from the shore and the fish were left. And then the earthquake happened, which seemed very strange to some of the people of Haiti. So this is something interesting, kinds of things to keep in mind that happen that are not really easily understood. And this reminds me, I'll bring up some others that are also challenges that I don't necessarily spend time wondering about it or getting into conspiracy theories about it or accusing people about it, but they are interesting phenomena that people, would find curious and challenging to know about. Another one that is somewhat in a similar vein is what happened in New Orleans during Katrina. You most well have heard that some people who lived near the levee, when the levee broke, swear that there were bomb noises going off for the levee to be breaking before the levee broke. The bomb happened and the levee broke. And I think, I'm not sure, that Spike Lee made a documentary or a movie about this. So that's another interesting thing. And the theory there is that they knew the water was going to overtake the city, and they wanted to save the most commercial parts and more productive parts, so to speak, economically, and to let go the parishes that were closer to the levee by doing what they did. So it's another interesting thing. Then, of course, we have 9/11. And many people have many questions about what happened at 9/11, and I have no idea why or how 9/11 happened totally, and I'm not sitting around accusing or thinking conspiratorially, but it's interesting to note how many things by reasonable intellects have been challenged and questioned as to why they happened the way they did. For example, the way one of the buildings collapsed, some engineers of repute have said it's impossible for this to have happened from an airplane hitting it. The dynamics, the physics of how it happened just didn't add up, according to them. Another thing is, I remember seeing a documentary done by a very intelligent Hispanic guard custodian who worked the bottom floors and probably the whole building of the World Trade Center. And he described in intricate detail what he was relaying was that there were bombs going off before the building was impacted and had what we saw on television. There were bombs going off below, and I can't remember the details of the story, but he was trying to get out what he experienced in advance of what came to be seen as a plane explosion into the building. Also, we have a system, NORAD, that when things are going awry in the skies, that the military sends out jets to go alongside the planes that are a problem, possibly bring them down, and so on. And NORAD was called into action on that morning as the plane left Boston. I guess did they all leave from Boston? I can't quite remember. No, I don't think so. But anyway, instead of coming immediately when they were ready to take off, they were delayed for a half an hour somehow, I remember reading. And also the way President Bush for 7 minutes continued to read to the children after this crisis was put into his ear. And apparently he was told about what happened, not after the first building, but when already 2 buildings were impacted. So it would seem it would have to have been, excuse me, we have to get going. So there are questions, very interesting how these things remain questionable after long periods of time. But in saying this about George Bush, you know, the deer and the doe in the headlights, or continuing to read, which is a very mysterious thing, very hard to come to grips with, I still think of Barack Obama. And I think of when we all found out that 32 people were shot dead in a military building in a room, just slaughtered by one of our own military people who happened to be doing jihad, as told to him by Imam al-Awlaki, or a guy who was an imam at one time, now lives in Yemen apparently. How he, upon hearing of it and had the cameras come to him to make a statement, was joking casually, relaxedly, like this, for 3 minutes before he said a statement about what had occurred. So it goes around from all angles. And of course, I'm reminded of Barack Obama and so much that is not known about him, which someday will come out. The things that are gaping discrepancies about the background of this guy and possibly the motivations and purposes. Now, as far as concerns us right now and the politics going on, and at the moment that I'm speaking to you, some very, very crazy things are happening. This so-called health bill is being coerced, and I'm not going to get into the details of what the problems are with getting this legislation through, if that's what you want to call it, because at this point it is coercing people against their will. Crazy things. Now they're going to pass something that's not the bill and then vote to throw the legislation into the bill. It's crazy. I mean, short of seizing power at the point of a gun and telling people this is what you're going to have and we're taking it and we're doing it, the shenanigans are everything possible that can be done to twist arms and coerce and shove, including giving people judgeships, offering people jobs, and so forth, to make, which is against the law, by the way, to make this thing, so to speak, happen. And if the elements of it are what people like stopping there being a rule against pre-existing conditions and so on, some of the things that we do like, why not just do a bill of the elements and never mind this massive government control, unlike Medicare, because now with a 2,700-page bill, it's going to be controlling what you eat, what you think, how you visit the doctor, what kind of application of medicine can be given to you, where you stand on the spectrum of productive people that can have money spent on them versus those that have less productivity, and so forth and so on. So our freedoms, this is not like Medicare. Medicare merely pays. It allows you to go to the doctor and it pays the bill. So many of our freedoms are eroding, in a word. It's horrible, horrible times. The power has been seized. The agenda is preordained. It's inflexible. Why is it going like this? Why are articles written that Barack Obama perhaps can't change his ways, that there's something about him that he can't change, by people in some of these very left-leaning papers, for wondering how he could have more flexibility and make this a more doable, easily doable situation than what we've been through. And what they're missing, both they and a lot of people who don't have these proclivities in their thinking, what they're missing is they're not connecting the dots, that this is a so-called progressive agenda, which in today's terms, in today's people that have control of Washington, is another word for what we used to call communism, and the the putting of people under the snare, control, and dictatorship, directorship of the government. Now, this is a country of freedom. I want us to remember that. The reason that we have any claim to fame at all, most of all, the world over, the reason that people have flocked here from where they were oppressed, where they couldn't make money, where they couldn't subsist on any kind of an existence of making a living in other places, is because of the freedom of the United States of America. Yes, we do have our history where freedoms were not complete by a long shot. I understand that. But we have worked at this point in time so much, and so much is coming around. And freedom is very precious. I always bring up to you the civil rights person, I believe his name was Bayard Rustin, who worked for people's causes all his life, who was African American, born in the United States, and sometimes as a child had no food to eat. And he said he'd been everywhere, he'd been through the most serious kind of deprivation. But now in his life, as an older person, he said, of all this, there is nothing more precious than freedom. Nothing more precious. If you gave an animal the choice that they could run on the city streets and maybe they'd have to starve to death or get run over by a car, or they could be put in a cage and euthanized in 3 days, what would they choose? Everybody chooses freedom given the chance. Nobody says, take me, make me your slave, make me do whatever you want me to do, I will do it. Unless, of course, you're totally in love with the picture you think you see in front of you and know nothing more about it. This is also a country of upward mobility. We're not sitting around here and all the gains that have been made by so many people of every race, of every gender, and so on, regardless that there is so much left to do, and there is a lot left to do. I will not take that from anyone. Yes, there is a lot left to do. I agree. But upward mobility, this is a country and this is a yearning in people the world over, unless they're brainwashed, unless they're scared, unless they've been down so long it looks like up to them that they can't even imagine to be an actualized and whole human being. Most people by far want to do something with their life. They'd like to get better in their life, whether they do it by being con people, con artists, or they do it by hard work, or they do it by a combination of those things and luck and so on. People love to strive to do something, to achieve, to get somewhere other than. That's the life journey. Even if your life journey is to get somewhere spiritually, you'd like to have a way to do that. Now, you can't do that in China. You cannot practice certain kinds of religion, and they wiped out the Tibetan country and all the manifestations of Buddhism. You can't have religion in Russia. By the way, when people are of the socialist, communist, progressive persuasion, regular religion, what we think of as religion, means very little to them, because they are the religion. They are what you are to believe in. They rule, you obey. They are what you are to think, feel, say, and do. They rule, you obey. It's kind of a nastiness. It's kind of a bad view of human beings, and a view with this social justice theory that I have spoken about in previous programs. It's kind of a nastiness towards people. It's kind of a dislike of people. It's not a helping of people. It's making you suckers obey and do as I say and pay up punishment-wise those of you who we deem guilty of something or needing to be punished, you know, for being wealthy, for being successful, for being whatever. And I'm not saying that we don't need to do something about the great gaps between extreme wealth and very little of anything to get by on. Oh no, these are things that we do need to work out, but not this way. And very, very ominous things are happening to this experiment, which is very young in terms of history. Other countries go back thousands of years. So does ours, technically, if we count people who were here before us. But if we count where we start, the so-called United States of America, this is an extremely young country, and one that whose experiment in people getting to be who they are and say what they want, including being able to say many vile things, many things that some of us find vulgar and too violent and too sexist and so on. But it is the country of freedom, and it's an upward mobility. And this doesn't mean we don't give people a hand up, but we certainly don't put the handcuffs on them so that they fall in line what other people have in mind for you, and you do the bidding of what other people say. Not only that, in a free country and in the kind of government we have, though it's never pure, it's never perfect, nothing in life is, you never do anything legislatively, governmentally, without the consent of the governed. That's the point of the United States of America. The governed must give you the consent, and therefore, when representatives are supposedly representing you in Washington, they are supposed to be following what you back home say they should be doing. Just beware. Just be wise, just learn more, and don't believe just what's being told to you in little sound bites and pretty words. You've got to know more of what's going on. There's an awful lot at risk. There's an awful lot to be knowing about, to be worthy, to be a citizen of the world, a citizen of the United States, and someone who can speak for him or herself, develop him or herself, and become the most full and actualized human being possible. Freedom, freedom, just give me freedom, 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 give me freedom.